As soon as she says. Everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. Right, so a couple weeks ago, we started on this theme around the idea of usurping God, and we're going to continue with that.
Usurping God?
Yes, that is what I said. And I will just read the definition of usurp, and that is to take a position of power or importance illegally or by force.
When we separate.
That's when we separated, yes. Or the separation was an effect of that. And so the course really does talk a lot about the idea of we kicked off God off the throne. And let me see where that chart is. Did I bring it out? Oh, here it is over here. That when we were at one with God, oops, wrong. That was after. When we were one with God, we got all the attributes God had, which is love and peace, eternity, Christ, joy, innocence, and that we're all the same. And as this definition of usurp talks about the idea, we basically kicked God off the throne because God gave us everything. The one thing he did not give us was the ability to be a creator. And we weren't too happy about that because we wanted to be a creator. Now, the course very specifically states the idea of when we chose to separate, that whatever we did from that point on is now called making instead of creating, because only creation is reality and what we're doing is not reality. So if you notice, there's only one throne. And so in order for us to be on the throne, we basically had to get rid of God, usurp God, take a position of power or importance illegally or by power. And we now sit on the throne. We have no memory of the true God any longer because now we align with this. And as an effect of that, there's now a me and something else. And the something else is always the problem. It's never me. We live in separation and we experience guilt, sin, fear, death, projection, and everything different. And I think it's important, though, I think it's hard to grasp that this is all inclusive. This is what the result of having chosen for love or our connection with God has left us, right? So it's, we do talk about the idea that we then project it into the world and we live in the world, play the part of an innocent victim and blame somebody else. But it's important that we understand that or this, which would be equal, is, what we experience down here is an effect of what went on up there, right? So basically, we said to God, you know what? I want to be in control. You just get out of the way. I got things under control. Which sounds good. We did get what we wanted. We got to be in charge. We're on the throne. The only problem is, as a result of that, we no longer have the connection with love, joy, peace, connection, oneness. And so I guess you could say, pay a high price for what we've decided was important to us. We did get what we wanted, but we now have lacked that experience of connection. And the course in chapter 2 on text 17, if anybody wants to go to it, you can. It's page 17. He says, to extend is a fundamental aspect of God, which he gave to his son. In the creation, God extended himself to his creations and imbued them with the same loving will to create. So what God had, he gave to his son. And I'm not going to read this whole paragraph because we did go over it a couple of weeks ago, but I do want to talk about some of the highlights. So I'm going to go to line 6 where it says, no child of God can lose his ability because it is inherent in what he is, excuse me, but he can use it inappropriately by projecting. So our gifts from God are not lost, but because of the choice for separation, they can be used inappropriately by projection. So what we did was we projected into the world what we didn't want to own and made it look like I'm an innocent victim and everybody else is the problem. And we have lived in this little square, though all these squares happened before we got to this, but we have blocked them out. And I think there's a word oblivion or something. I can't remember the actual words that it talks in the course, that we have forgotten what we set up. So we literally do believe we're an innocent victim of circumstances beyond our control. And as we all know, as we walk through our daily life experiences, I can wake up in the morning and feel like, I'm on top of the world, get on the freeway and have somebody cut me off, or my boss tell me something that I'm not happy with, whatever. It doesn't matter what form of disruption may occur. And I will say, it's because of my boss. It's because of that person that cut me off. It's because, which that is the way this is set up. And it is the way we experience our lives. But what the course is trying to help us understand is this is the setup. This is what you chose. This is the effect of what that choice is. And I know, I think all of us are basically come to the course with the hope that I will get the answer that will make my life better today. What are you talking about all this stuff for? That's no help at all. I want to know, how do I do this and where do I go? And whatever my concerns are of the moment. And yet we keep going back to square one. What's the problem? What's the solution? What's going on? And this is set up in a manner where literally all my senses, all my experience lead to me believing that what's going on in the world is the problem. It has nothing to do with me because I am truly an adorable, sweet little innocent victim. I saw her hand and then I'll give you, go ahead.
I'm starting at sentence 7.
Yep.
Inappropriate use of extension or projection. If you're coming down to the last line of that, when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you, that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth.
Correct.
Well, isn't truth really God's? But we don't really know what that truth is.
That is correct. Yes, and that's one of the challenges we have, because we're living in the separated state, trying to figure out, as me, what that is.
And we're trying to fill it with a bunch of things that we think we're being creative, but what is that saying you always say? No thought. Use the source.
No, that's in the course.
Right.
That's what,
Yeah, ideas leave not their source.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
and the source being God. So how can we
Correct.
possibly know the truth other than that which the, Holy Spirit brings us to some extent?
You can't, and that's exactly the deal that we're up against. And we know workbook lesson number 5 talks about the idea, I'm never upset for the reason I think. I think that's because of this, this, or this. But he's saying, no, you're upset because you're aligned with that. It has nothing to do with this.
Right, because that person can go and someone else is going to
Well,
right
take
back
their
up.
place.
Right.
Exactly. So he's trying to constantly get us back to where the cause is. Where's the problem? Because if I don't solve the problem, which is to recognize if I'm having difficulty in my life, it's because that thought system is engaged. And now I have a different answer. And that different answer is, get out of the way. I don't know. You show me what the answer is, because with my limited understanding and understand the separation is not wholeness. So I am always limited. And as you said, we're always trying to fill it up with whatever in our world to make the pain go away, make me suffer less. But 2 minutes later, it's time for another thing to fill up. And nothing here will ever fill it up to the point where we're back to our original state until I get out of the way and let him be. Well, and we said, absolutely, that's the way we set it up. Yes, we set it up that way. And you know, I just marvel at looking at the world and seeing how solid that setup is. I
It's
mean,
unbelievable.
it's beyond unbelievable. I mean, like all my senses, all my beliefs, everything is wrapped around this thought system.
Well, it's all wrapped around being a victim. We love that part. That way we get to play the part of projecting the guilt that we can't deal with in ourselves onto everything and everyone
Absolutely.
else here.
Yes. And, you know, and I always talk about the idea, we can't play innocent victim without a perpetrator. So I as Mary, right, I as Mary Ann can sit here and say, I don't want all these perpetrators in my life and understand a perpetrator is anything that takes my peace away. I don't want that, but on some level, I not only want that, I require it.
You set it up that way.
You set it up that way.
So I have a question, before we
Yes.
jumped into this.
Yes.
Because it had been going on for a long time before. The mind, did we understand before we leaped that what this thought system was? What?
I would have to say no. We just,
Not
We didn't even have a clue.
well, no, I
We
mean.
thought we were taking love with us.
Yes, we thought we were gonna get more than everything. And
That
instead,
cake and eat it too. kind of
cake
thing.
and eat it too, yes. Instead, we got what we wanted, but we lost what we are.
Wow, that's a horrible set.
That's,
That's the way it is.
well, not only is it a horrible setup, but it's a setup that we have reinforced literally since the Big Bang. So we are extremely enmeshed in this belief system. So this stupid blue book comes along and says, oh, just change your mind. This will be easy. Well, it's not easy because we're so addicted to this thought system.
I find myself pointing out not differences among people I don't know, but people that are so entrenched in it that haven't learned or even started learning another way. And they're just playing the kill or be killed, even in those special relationships.
Yep.
I don't even know how to communicate in those kind of relationships anymore with someone that's not aware of another way.
Well,
you
and
know?
that's,
It's hard.
that's,
just a part of myself.
that's just a part of myself. And
Right.
that
It
again,
all comes back to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it's really not this.
right.
Part that
The war
projected,
mind,
the dreamer of the dream.
which may or may not be me, right?
Well, it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Right, because there is no you. There is no me.
That's right.
Wrap your mind around that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can toss around those concepts and go, yeah, I'm a core student, and yeah, I intellectually understand that. But when the situation shows up in my life, that is not my first response
It's a
at
reaction.
all.
Right.
Yes, it's just like the knee-jerk response. It's, I have no control over it. It's automatic.
That's what you look at.
Trying to use the ego thought system to get out of this mess. It's not
Can't
right.
happen,
Right, doesn't
can't
work that way.
happen,
Except by
impossible.
looking at it, right? Without the reaction.
Right.
That's
Look
it.
at it, you
Right.
Take yourself out of.
Right.
And that's all you can do.
Decision making.
And that's well.
And don't judge.
Okay, so I have this kind of chart just to kind of delineate a little bit what we've been up to. You know, we were at oneness, and this is opposite because oneness is at the bottom today. So bear with me, but in order to chop this up this way, it worked that way. Then we have the belief in separation. We had the experience of terror. You know, I've given the example many times of being in a spaceship and cutting the cord and, you know, like a balloon taking off. It's like into total oblivion. So then we had the belief in guilt, which is the negative feelings and beliefs. You know, we all have those, whether we're consciously aware of them, they're floating around there. Sin, I'm bad. And then punishment, or fear, which demands punishment. I believe I've done something so horrible, I deserve to be punished. So even though I play the part of an innocent victim, I believe I'm an innocent victim, on some level, I'm waiting for it to show up. Okay. Then we project it into the world, and it's a world of kill or be killed. And I think, well, why is it a world of kill or be killed? I just want to be loved. Well, this is how deep this pile has gotten to get us to where we are.
Well, we had the thought, carried the thought, killing that guy.
Well, exactly.
You know,
That
it's
was
in
the
our
birth.
mind
That was the
that
birth.
What else is gonna be projected out?
Exactly. And that was the building block foundation of the separated world. The belief in death. I believe I killed off God to exist as an individual. So what's my first, layer here is I believe in death. The Course talks about the concept of death a lot. It talks about this is a belief system of death. Well, understand eternity, birth and death. Again, that's an attribute of having chosen for this, the separation. And we're being asked to continually examine and look at all these things because this is where we found ourselves. We don't know that this is where I found myself. I don't relate to my life as it's about death. But if we really examine, if I turn the page of my book, the last page is dead. Wake up in the morning, the end of the day, that day's dead. And we know our bodies are constantly moving towards death, and that's all another storyline. We're not even going to go there. But it's like if we really are honest with ourselves and begin to really examine, this is a world of death. And if we're not dying, we're afraid we're going to die, or we're afraid somebody else we know that in love is going to be dying. So it's to really become aware that this really wasn't such a good choice.
We set this thing up so convoluted. We're lucky we were even heading back.
Absolutely, Harvey. And I absolutely agree. And I encourage people to look at it from that point of view. The very fact that we are even open to a slight crack in this cosmic egg is monumental. Monumental. Even though, obviously most of us aren't able to live this course 24 hours a day, the very fact that there is an awareness that this is a possibility is just beyond.
The lucky thing is, as Jesus tells us, we don't have to know anything. Just take yourself
Isn't
where
it
you're
great?
at, and whatever disturbs you,
Yes,
I'll help you.
yes,
Okay, but we don't want to do that. We want to play the projection game, and I'm going to handle it myself. I got it all under control, and it's
Yes.
all bullshit.
right. But we have to be aware that part of buying the package of separation is I made a choice, I was in charge, and we've been in charge ever since. And then to just relinquish that I'm in charge is very uncomfortable for all of us. And yet he's saying, you don't know the answer, dude. Nothing here will ever bring you to the right answer.
I don't understand the psychological aspect, but I know this, that we walk around bullshitting ourselves all day long.
Right. But when you started the course, you weren't consciously aware that you were doing that. You were doing it, but you weren't consciously aware. And, that's again, a lot of the observation and becoming in tune with what these words are saying is to become aware of what we set up, why we set up, and why we continue to fall in the trap of the setup. Ken has a tape set called The Web of Specialness. I just love that name because we are so,
Everything's intertwined. Just the way it is.
It's like a spider.
Exactly.
You see the leaves on the ground, all these beautiful leaves with the stem, long stem, and they're dead. And just to think that that was what's 5 months ago, just a little sprout.
Yep,
They
yep.
just starting to think about it.
That's what's going on in our mind. That's the state of our mind.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
And to expect anything else being projected out is insane,
yes,
because that's exactly what we're gonna get.
Yeah.
Right back.
Yep.
The trick is to take that projection and bring it back to the decision-making part of our mind. To
yes.
choose again.
Choose again. And sometime, I was talking to somebody the other day who studies the course, she doesn't come to this group. She was saying, well, I just feel like I'm asking all the time. I'm asking. And sometimes the scenario that you're going through doesn't change. It doesn't shift. But we have to understand, and I've given the example of thinking about these two thought systems as bank accounts. And we have put all our money in this bank account for eons of time. And now we're starting to put some in here. It's not about if I ask for help, I come back here and everything's wonderful. It's that I ask for help and now a stronger part of my mind is starting to align with truth instead of with the ego. And we keep trying to find proof that what I'm doing is working out
Or
okay.
that it's definite that I'm actually getting help. But the reality is when I pray and I ask for help,
Mhm.
I feel moments, much more moments of peace. And that is help.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
That's the only help you get, really. is
And it's,
peace.
Exactly.
it comes in of
The
that,
help is choosing the other team.
right? And
Yeah.
listening to the
Got it.
other guys, yeah.
Bottom line, that's all it is. And we're dealing with our own self,
Always,
one of us.
always, always, always.
except the
always.
atonement for yourself. That's all that's going on.
Yep,
And it always ends up back on me,
yeah,
not
exactly.
this body, but me.
Which again, is that what I want to find out? The words say in this book?
Absolutely not, because that's what you
No.
projected out. If you
I've been
don't wanna
doing
see in
this.
Yourself.
I've been doing this all my life. Why do I want to do this? And it's not even this, it's this. And that's important. I think a lot of times when people start out, they're pointing their finger there. And then the course says, well, I'm responsible. All right, so I'm going to blame me. And then I just wallow myself into guilt, which is not the answer. I chose the wrong choice. Now I can make a different choice. Or even if I'm not ready to make that other choice, the fact that I know it's there when I'm ready to choose for it.
Well, the guilty one is the red little dot there, but we covered it over
Yep.
when we started projecting ourselves into the world. We don't even know that we still have the choice available to us.
Correct. Correct. And even now that we consciously know, why is it we don't choose all the time? I mean, like,
Because we don't
didn't,
want to.
Why is the decision maker guilt? Can you say that again?
well, it's what the decision maker chose
He
that
chose.
brought forth the experience of guilt, sin, and fear,
As in the one mind.
as in the one mind, as the
And it's a
sun.
question of
One
getting
son
aligned
What
with
am I
that.
giving attention to?
Yep.
It's-
Yeah,
what-
think of
what
it
is
as a,
giving attention
right.
to, here or here?
right, just think of it as a,
Pendulum.
well, not a pendulum, but on a game board, it's either this way or a pointer. There you go. It's either going this way or this way. There aren't any other choices.
it.
And I know which one it's chosen
By
by
your
my
results.
experience.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That's so
what
true.
you project it out. If you're in taking the mind of the ego, that's the only thing that's going to get projected. Because
right.
the right mind is covered over.
That's right. Yep. You had something a long
Well,
time ago,
it's
sorry.
interesting that your throne again. that-
Yep.
that throne, that part, okay, so that part, so we're looking for a throne of our own.
Oh,
But
yeah.
When you're on that, there's two things, two beings on
Choices,
it.
right.
Meaning that, so then that's the truth that we never separated from God. Or we can't be on the throne with our adversary or our perpetrator. So
Well, but
that's-
understand that when we chose for the ego, we chose separation.
Right.
Which means there is a me, though there's only one, the sun is now sitting on this throne. As a
Right.
result of this choice, it's a dualistic experience instead of a oneness experience.
So actually, you're
So-
having this dualistic experience on the throne, which I find very interesting.
Right.
Because if you have the throne, you have it all to yourself. without
Good
all this-
point. I like
without
that.
All this, well, what happened, with all this consternation over it, so that who took it and whose turn is it
Right.
and stuff like that, yeah.
But I think if we look at it from the perspective of, this is a choice of duality versus a
Okay.
choice of oneness.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not so much that there's one person sitting here, it's a thought system of duality versus a thought system of oneness. So
Well,
maybe
everything's
that,
in relation. Every single thing in this contingent reality is in relation.
absolutely 100%. And, a big part of the, as Harvey was saying, we don't really want this. You see, that means I have to literally give up literally all investment in everything I know, including and especially this little character called me.
That's
No.
fear.
We use the chart of the hero of the dream. Well, I'm the hero of the dream. I'm the center of attention. I don't want to not be. to be in oneness. I'll suffer the pain of, stuff happening that I don't like, or, I'll go running towards things that I think I do like. None of them are ever going to give me peace. They'll keep us extremely busy, but they won't bring us peace.
That's why when you're with somebody and you're having a conversation, one of you doesn't talk anymore, watch how frightened you get.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, you might be having a really bad day at work and you think, oh, I'm just going to get home and sit down and just, be at peace. What do? You walk in the door. What should I eat? Let me turn on the radio. Let me turn on the TV. Let's, make some phone calls. What, I think I want it, but I don't really want it because that's terrifying to me.
That's what we made up, is to stay busy constantly,
Yes.
one way or another.
One way or the other.
So being in duality by default requires care.
Requires what? Absolutely. Can't
We
have
love
it
that.
without.
We like relationships to go bad.
Yep.
And we love to
Duality
fight.
can't exist without a purpose.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
But you've been the perpetrator to God. I've been the perpetrator to God.
Well, but
God doesn't see me as a perpetrator.
no, he does not see you as a perpetrator. But in this thought system, God was the first one that was a perpetrator because he wouldn't agree to what we want.
That's when we made up our own God.
That's when we made up our own God. No, that's not the real God.
Right.
It's the God we
That's
made up.
like the birth of duality.
That's,
And
yes.
it has duality, means we're
And
separated.
Heaven's one, the concept of oneness. I mean, you really can't understand oneness at this level.
Well, it's like, we're all looking for it, so we're looking for something besides what we're
You're not
suffering.
looking for oneness.
Well, we're looking for something besides what we're suffering from.
And it's usually make me feel better
Yeah.
so I can make it through the next hour.
Right.
It's the ego that's doing it.
And it's the ego that's doing the looking and the ego that's bringing the answers.
Well, but that's how it starts. I mean,
Yes.
So we were selfish to say we wanted to
That's
take the
right.
throne. And now we're selfish because we want to have oneness and peace. Well, we're just, trying to make our way through all this. It's all very confusing, and, you feel like you're doing the right thing, or you had anger towards somebody for, 25 years. Every time you think of them, you go, like that. You're
Right.
just had it with them, and now you think, well, that's not bringing me peace.
And
Well,
and
things
there,
aren't bad enough. Think about what peace that you want, but the only way you can get it is to include everybody
Right.
and
You
everything.
can't grab it away from the person, because that's kind of what you feel like you thinking, they're all, you have all these
There ain't no there.
ideas about people in your mind. You have these ideas that like, and then all you can do is ask to see it differently. Because
yes,
you've been looking at it this one way,
Unless you forgive everybody.
I
You
mean,
did it right here.
okay, but still, when you wake up in the morning, you're not thinking of everybody, you're thinking of one or two,
You'll
or
get your
habits.
opportunities.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's how you have to start out with, okay, so what am I thinking about now? And, it really becomes a question of, do I want to see it differently? Do I want to
Yes.
have peace?
That's it.
But I have to know that I'm not feeling it, and,
That's
Right.
it.
and then that's how the awareness.
And the truth is, you don't want to feel it.
But you do want the awareness after that. I mean, you're working on it.
right.
So, just to say point blank, I don't want it, is not true.
There's a part of your mind that does
You
want it.
would get upset if you didn't want it. I mean, that puts the responsibility back on me.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
I own that. I do, most of the time, I do want to be upset.
Yeah.
And until I, whatever the emotion is that this it thing is experiencing settles, and I can take a step back and I can look at it with Jesus or the Holy Spirit. I want it. And that's okay. It's okay that I want it.
Yeah, but you want-
Nothing's
you want your
happening.
way. You want your way instead.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's.
Go
how-
away, God. I don't
She's
want you
already
now.
special.
You have to go through all that. You have to go through, one thing at a time.
That's the game we're playing.
Yeah.
I want to be special, God.
Let it
You
go.
won't give it to me. I'm gonna make my own world.
Correct. And that's basically what we did. And the course
Simple.
is here to help us become aware of that. And then as we progress in the process, when we begin to find out, I can't have what I really want, which is love. And the pain of attaching ourselves to this thought system of the ego comes to a point where we can't tolerate it anymore. And then we throw up our hands and say,
Well, help me God.
what do you want?
Right.
And until then, we're
Kicking and screaming.
kicking and screaming and saying, I'm working on the course. When, and sometimes we're not.
That you know, that you want, you finally want something when you're done with what you don't want.
Well, there's absolutely. And,
You know,
and
like,
I,
can't- Or
yep.
just, you know, none of it makes any sense.
It
At all.
won't,
None of
because
it.
nothing is.
Right.
Because
So
nothing does,
that's
right.
your golden opportunity to, you know, come to the course and see, well, what peace is a different thing besides what I think I want all the time.
But you know, the
Peace
truth
a
is,
different
we
thing.
want to understand everything. I walk around and I want to understand, but
Yeah.
nothing here can be understood.
Right.
There's no
Indeed.
truth here.
I guess you feel like it
Yep.
does.
There's no truth
No,
here.
there's nothing
Right.
here to it.
That's
I feel like
everything's
it's
meaningless.
stupid because you can't catch on to what everyone else is saying.
Yeah.
And that's the part where, you know, you have to go within because everybody's saying everything, everybody's saying opposite things. And
Yep.
you're listening to all that and you're just taking that all in and there's no chaos. But that's when, you know, on the verge of a breakdown is when you go,
Just
oh.
stay quiet.
oftentimes, yep, yep. All right, so the inappropriate use of extension or projection, which is what the Son of God, when he chose separation, chose to do, occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth, which is exactly
And
what
that
we
thing
did.
is constant.
And
At
that's
least it is
constant.
with me.
It's like, so when you put it in that gear, that's what's running the show. And it's not only constant, it's unequivocal. And that's why we're being asked to look at what the ego is doing without judgment or condemnation, because that's what it's going to do. Don't be surprised you're not going to find love there. It's not there. Don't be surprised you're not going to
You
be
can't find it
nice.
here.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And as we begin to become unequivocally aware that this maybe wasn't such a good choice. It's not bringing me what I thought I mean, I did get to be in charge and in
Yeah, but we're
control.
insane enough to keep pursuing.
Well, and obviously we do, because we're still here talking about it.
You bet.
All right, so when we did that, first you believe that what God created can be changed by your own mind. We believe we could do something to God and now he's different so that I can be a separated individual. Second, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. This was perfect. Now I'm living in an experience that is imperfect and lacking. And I think, you know, across the board, we would all certainly
You know,
agree with
we had
that
the choice of
statement.
Doing anything we wanted. Why the hell would we choose that?
Because we wanted to be an individual and special, and with it being an individual and special, the effects of that are the insanity of this, you know, dualistic word. You're either at one or you're in two. There's no other. And if there's two, there's always going to be conflict,
Differences.
separation, you know, differences, differences, yep.
Because when we're arguing with
competition.
somebody, it's
Yep.
over.
Yep.
I'm different from you.
Absolutely. And I'm right and you're wrong
You're right,
on
that's
top
right.
of that. Don't forget that one.
And our world keeps trying to modify everything to, you know, what, I mean, even colors, you have green and Kelly green and chartreuse.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
all these things, that everybody's trying to modify for what they think they see.
Yeah, but
That's
what's
just a
on,
constant.
don't even go there. What's underneath that? Truly, forget about all the colors. It's differences,
Separation.
separation.
Yep. And again, observe that there's separation and duality and smile and
that's
go,
what we're doing.
wow, look at the world I chose
And all we gotta
everywhere I
do is
turn.
step back and smile.
I laugh a lot more at the
Yes,
absurdity
that's
of
a
it.
good
I
thing.
really do. And I think that that's part of the looking process and the awareness. Because that's the aha. moment
Yeah.
when you are looking at something.
Absolutely. And that's what we're being asked to do, is to observe and smile more and go, well, yeah, I'm an ego. What would I expect me to be or do or act or,
It's so subtle.
no, it's
to
very
just
subtle.
Watch the thoughts come. I'm driving along, no agenda, nothing. I'm watching the thoughts. And everyone that comes up is a form of attack.
Absolutely.
And I get to the point that I'm batshit crazy.
Yes.
And then I can laugh.
Yes. And Jesus tells us we're totally insane.
We are
you know?
insane. And all of this is meaningless.
And all this is meaningless on top of that. But to any degree that we attach to anything being real or solid or mine or whatever, I'm not going to smile at it. And, in our life experiences, we can go along, oh, I can get rid of that one. I get it. Oh, wait a minute. How about this one? And we know in the workbook lessons, even the first couple, Jesus is very specific. Go around the room and say, this doesn't mean anything. And he says, make sure you don't avoid anything. Maybe it's your grandchild or your child. Well, yeah, especially this, your child or your grandchild or a picture of them. Don't disregard that. Well, initially we read those lessons and think, what in the world is he talking about? And yet what he's trying to help us to do is develop our mind in a way of realizing it's either all insane and not real, or you can't separate little pieces and parts.
Can't we make sure you get it, but something.
Yeah.
Just. Boom.
And slowly we get closer and closer to being, willing. All right, you keep promising me there's a better way. And obviously my way is not working out so good as I thought it
And he
was.
tells us, I understand.
He tells us
I
all the
understand
time.
where you're at.
Yes.
I understand you're an ass and that you're this or that, but it's okay.
Yeah,
It's,
okay.
no, really, it's okay.
It
Like
is.
playing Jeopardy 24/7.
That's all he's asking. Bring it.
Absolutely.
That's all he's asking.
Oh, yes.
The rest of it, he'll take care of.
That's right. But recognize I'm here because this was the choice that I made that I wanted. Because
Exactly.
if I don't take that step, I'm still playing the part of an innocent victim of even God did this to me. Well, God didn't do
if you
this to
really
me.
Look at the person of the, I'm at 83 or 90 now. You really look at that prayer. It says it all right there.
Yep.
All of it.
Yep. Well, and not only on that page, but there's other ones
All
that
the
are
way
very,
through, yeah. Deceive yourself no longer.
well, again, if I've played the part of being a sweet little adorable innocent victim all my life, I don't want to find out that I am responsible. What, that's not, get me another blue book. This one's not working
See,
right.
I know I was an asshole in my life.
Well, we all were, Harv. Yeah,
I know that.
but I
didn't
still
even
want
fool
to,
myself.
right, but if you could hide behind the rock, if somebody's approaching you and telling you you will hide behind the rock and pretend you're not, even if you
That's
unequivocally
why
know
you
it.
Can't stand to look at what you really believe about yourself.
Because you believe it's real, because it seems so solid.
Yep.
Even though it's not solid, it feels like it, right? So the
Sure does to
cover-up,
me.
the masking of the body and the world makes us think that it's real, so of course we don't.
Well, all that bullshit is just to keep you rooted here in the world.
And it works.
So the evil can keep playing the games that he wants to play. That's all it is. All distraction. That chart that she's got with all the garbage on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what the evil loves.
Yep. Well, see how
Loves it.
garbage? He says my chart's
Not
garbage.
that one, that's
Which
the
one?
one.
That was a good one. I don't think so. Which one? Oh, the hero. Oh, yeah. And who's in the middle? Me.
yeah.
Yay.
Evil loves that.
Of course it
How
does.
much are you gonna stay here?
Because that makes me feel like I am. Yeah. All right. So then you believe that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself. Well, if I was at one and connected with oneness. And I think I'm this individual and I'm special and I'm different. I am not the same as what God created. I am this new thing that I've made myself to be. And then,
And it looks like God pulled a fast one on us, but we usurped him.
yes, and that's so
Well, we
different.
think we usurped it.
Right.
Well, yes,
Well,
it is our experience that we did, even though we didn't really do anything to it.
We brought the story the ego gave, told us, Brookline and children.
And fourth, you believe that you can create yourself and that the direction of your own creation is up to you. So again, I'm in charge. I've killed off God. I'm doing my thing, and God is no longer what God's supposed to be. But
An idea and I ran.
I ran with it, yes. And the Course talks about this as being the separation or the detour into fear. So the first experience as we made this choice was, I am in fear. I did something wrong. I did something bad. God will not take me back and embrace me because I've done something too horrible.
Well, think in terms if you did something, which, I don't know at the time that this all took place, whether you really believed that God was a superior to you. If you had that idea, I mean, you and God,
Right,
We're
we're
one.
one, yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
when he began or ended, it wasn't, that's not what oneness is,
right.
but just think if you had that type of thought, guilt would automatically come.
Absolutely. I mean,
Automatically.
look at the ways we barely do anything in the world and we feel guilty,
Exactly.
let
You-
alone
you have
thinking
a
we,
standard of what
your
system
guilt level
is,
is,
and if
yes.
you do something against your standard, you're feeling guilty.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
and the fallacy of the notion that you can create yourself and that the direction of your own creation is up to you. Again, we're in a relational world here. And there's always going to be somebody to thwart you. It's inevitable.
Well, yes, because in your mind, you believe in a dualistic experience. And when you believe in a dualistic experience, again, to be an innocent victim, you project into the world that other character or situation that is going to do that for you. It's a no-brainer, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That's the setup.
That's the only way it pops in your head too. is if
Exactly,
You see something that's in yourself first.
exactly.
That's what you're looking at. Otherwise, you wouldn't look there. You would have to.
Well, we.
It's like bing, bing, bing. You project it
That's
onto
crazy.
them after you
Okay, but
first
I mean,
feel
the
it.
experience you're having is
Back to
that
you
you
again.
feel like somebody
Yeah.
did it.
And then
Yeah.
oftentimes-
Never leaves you.
And then you oftentimes react to it, which just keeps feeding it.
I met like in a conversation with somebody. It's a
It doesn't
bing,
matter.
bing, bing. I attack you.
You attack
You,
me.
I project the guilt and fear I'm feeling onto you. And then you take it back to me and I feel it again. And he goes back and forth until it doesn't, but it's always here. It's always with.
With you.
The
Yeah.
psychological system was set up that way.
And I can interrupt that.
Yes, and that's what
Yes.
he's trying to help us become aware, because the more intellectually you realize what the setup is, and you start to trust that if I choose for that, that's going to interrupt that and I will have a different experience. But that even, again, intellectually becoming aware of that's a great thing. It's a good start, but to get to the point where that's where I unequivocally respond all the time.
Yes.
That's what the goal, yeah,
That's,
yeah. That's where we're walking.
It's like my brother, the other, whoever this is that I'm talking to, is giving me, okay, showing me.
He's giving you a gift to salvation.
Oh, there I am.
And I mean, the
Son of a
Course,
bitch. I'm this.
right?
We're the
Yeah.
same. And we're the same.
Yes.
And that's what you notice
That's
in
it.
interactions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the,
it's
You're
okay.
seeing yourself in your
Exactly,
brother.
yes, which means you're the same, which brings us more towards the right side of the chart. We
That's
playing
right.
in that ping pong game we were just talking about.
and the Course talks about our brother, and again, the brother can be a person, it can be a situation, it can be your toaster, it doesn't matter, is literally your salvation, because you can see what you dumped into your brother that you then forgot that you dumped into your brother. You can then recognize, oh, I lost my peace. This has to be because I've chosen this thought system instead of this one.
I don't have to think about what to say
Specifics,
next or
no.
figure anything out.
yeah.
I can just listen.
And this be
And that's the exact opposite of what, the current experience.
Exactly.
Something terrible happens and just carry that with you for years and try to say, people say this, people say that, try to glom onto what the people who were being nice to you, try to glom onto what they're saying. And then
Right.
all of a sudden you're all peaceful and then somebody comes along and smacks you down again with the bad thing that happened. So there's all that is constantly, and I just remember taking a long, long time, the words I said to somebody, that they said something back to me, or I always felt that they said things to me first and that I was really more innocent than that. So that was
Absolutely.
my thing,
No
but they
question.
were mad at me for some reason, and I had to quick think of something, then finally they would just like go away. And my mind would go away too. Then I think about all the other things. But now I can center myself and go looking for how to dissipate something that I'm suffering from. So I can take that thought and say, okay, I can ask. And that's really the best thing of this best part of this course is that
Great
it gives
offer.
you this, like, you have control.
But you
over-
have control about being not in control.
You have control over about not suffering any longer than you have to. And you
Amen.
can see that the way it, the way it references itself. And then that makes perfect sense. And then you're allowed to make perfect sense in oneness, and you don't have to play around in all those other things.
Yep.
I had an experience this week. And I have, it comes through this seeming vehicle. I had nothing to do with any of this. This is just, I'm so aware of that. But this was a very interesting experience. I'm walking this dog that I walk every so often, and I'm walking down the street. And this kid comes out of his house, 7, maybe 8, and he comes walking over and he pets the dog. And he's like, I know this dog, and he's petting the dog. And he said to me, he's old. And I said, yeah. And I said, he's also very calm. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, he is calm. And he gave me this smile. And it's just an instant. I looked at him and I can't even explain it.
No.
In that moment, I'm not asking for help. I'm not thinking I need to choose again. Nothing's going on in that moment. And I just looked at him and I said, you have a good day. And I meant it. And the next day I come back to walk this dog, same time, and totally unconscious at this point. This awareness came later. I was timing myself. I was timing the walk so that I would be in the same place around the same time, because I wanted to recreate the experience.
That's what
And
we
I'm
do.
walking across the street and he's coming down the sidewalk and we're right at the apron of this house where the dog lives. And he walked right past us. Like we weren't even there. And the thought came up, say something, say hello, say something.
Yeah.
And the next, and nothing happened. And the next thought was, let him be.
But that's such a good example of it happens naturally. I mean, I hate to use that word, but naturally, then I want to recreate it because, that was a joining unbelievable moment. Like you say, you can't even describe it, but we can't make it happen.
And the other thing that was so helpful too, that came up, I was looking at all of this on my way home. And the other thing that was very helpful was it had nothing to do with him. And the ego wants to make it about what's going on
Yes,
out here.
Yes.
My experience of this little boy had nothing to do with the little boy.
But again, we're so acclimated to form that we don't recognize it's really the connection in the content that is really what's being healed. Yeah.
We
Beautiful.
want it to be formed, like you said.
Sure.
We want it to be formed because that seems a lot simpler. It's just this or this. and
That's the way I'm making it real.
Well, and we're so addicted to form. Of course, that's what we're going to do. I mean, but I think it's great that you have that experience where you got to see it played out the real way and then the pretend way
And
that
the
you would like to.
setup.
Right.
The
The setup.
setup for disappointment.
That's what I was gonna say. I was just gonna ask you, how did you feel the second time? Did you feel any kind of like uncomfortableness inside of you or disappointment?
There was
sure.
a flash of disappointment. When he walked by, there was a flash of disappointment, but the thought of let him be, there was a shift.
It overrode it.
It
You shifted
overrode it.
Towards
It
the right.
overrode it. And, you know, and then on the way home, looking at, wow, look at that, there's the setup and all of that. And then hearing Ken saying, it's not about him, you know, 'cause Ken talks about that
Oh, all the time. Sure.
And so but just seeing the whole process of it is
Yeah.
just so helpful.
And I think the way you began with, I didn't ask for help about this, but I think as we keep, as I said
I
earlier,
ask for help
Well, I know, all the
even when
time,
I'm
I
not
know.
upset.
I know, but that's the putting the bank or the money in the right bank account. Okay, so maybe that one instant you weren't asking for help, but you're developing your bank account of
Yes.
coming from the right mind. And then those moments can, kind of slip right in there.
And they're beautiful.
Oh,
My
gosh,
point of
beyond
that is,
beautiful.
you know, a lot of core students, from my perception, think that, I have to, in that moment, choose
Oh, right,
again.
exactly, that moment. Yeah,
And it
yeah.
doesn't work that way, at least that's not my experience.
It's such a beautiful example of. In a way,
Well, and the other thing that really hit me too was, from the world's perspective, it's so small and
Yes, right.
insignificant.
Yeah,
But from my perception of that moment, it was,
everything.
yeah, but it was so quiet.
yeah, it's subtle.
And yeah, I can't even explain it, but there's no fireworks going off and the heavens don't open up and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the little joys
Yeah.
along the way. And it moved you to say, let it be the second time because of
Right.
that experience.
Yeah.
Well, whatever
That thought
moved
came
you,
up,
right, right.
That
Not
didn't
you,
come
I-
from me, yeah.
I wish we had other words besides you and me and to describe this because those aren't real.
But again, the reason why we have difficulty describing it is because that's coming from here and there are no words over here to describe what this is, other than, if somebody's had a reflection of a miracle, you can, look them in the face and say, you know what I mean? And they know what you mean because they've had that experience, not because of your experience.
Right.
Yeah,
But you can't define the experience because it loses its essence.
well,
It's
there's
either a
another part
shared
of
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
thing, or somebody else can relate to it, but it is not, you can't define it.
No. But when you've had one,
Yes.
and that sense will never leave you.
No.
That's here. And that's what, continuing to work on the course is really all about, coming to the place where we're connected to that level more and more. And that will be the automatic response to what we do and our experiences in life. But the getting to that point is the part that's not necessarily experienced is a whole lot of fun because we're so addicted to being what we think we are. All right, why don't we take a break? Because give them one more minute and then we'll get started. Uh-uh. All right, so paragraph 4, all fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God. So what this basically means is that we believe we usurped God. We kicked him off the throne and now we're in charge. And again, the result of that is guilt and fear. But what the Course is constantly trying to help us understand is, but it didn't happen. It's not real. And we keep insisting that it is real by our belief. And he keeps trying to remind us, no, it's not real. Come on over here. I'll show you it's not real. And we keep on insisting that it's still not real. All right. So we're going to move on to paragraph number 5. Whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with equal ease. It makes no distinction among misperceptions. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other. Some miracles may seem to be of greater magnitude than others, but remember the first principle in this course: there is no order of difficulties in miracles. In reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. These can be from yourself and others, from yourself to others, or from others to you. Peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. Illness is some form of external searching. Health is inner peace. It enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without and capable, through your acceptance of miracles, of correcting the conditions proceeding from lack of love in others. Whew, that's a mouthful. All right.
Listening to it over.
I know. That didn't help. All right, so we'll go line by line. So whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with equal ease. And this is really good news, although most of us would balk at it because we think some things in the world are much more important and much more valuable than other things. And the Course is telling us, from page 1, basically, that there are no order of difficulties in miracles. You're either at peace or you're not at peace. Okay? Unequivocally, again, across the board, that's it. You're either at peace or you're not. If you're not at peace, it's because you're aligned up with the ego. Well, the whole world, I mean, let's face it, if this happens, that's okay. But if this happens, whoa, wait a minute here. Big trouble. But this,
also, isn't it like the first time that you're looking at that? Because
sure.
Before that, you're just like, oh, this is shit. Of course it is. This happened. Of course that's going to happen. And now you're going, I'm not at peace.
Right.
Wait a minute. I'm not at peace. I don't feel good about this.
Yep.
I could go right to the red dot then and say, I don't feel good
Correct.
about this. God help me. And whatever it is, the smallest thing. And then from that, you get used to having that experience where you can't just go and say, okay, I don't like how this is going, God, help me. And just, take your breath and nap and just wait. But before that, you're sure that, it's going to be one piece of crap going to the next because it's just all we know.
Well,
And then when we start to know this other thing, it's absolutely in like for any little thing that comes up, you just feel rotten. Well, then I used to think, well, I'm not supposed to feel bad about that. That's just stupid. But now I see that's just the way it is. I feel bad about everything, and I can ask God to help me see it differently. And at this day in the race, it becomes like it's really a comfort.
I'm sure.
There's this place that I can go doesn't matter how, if I'm feeling bad about anything, there's a place I can go. And that takes a while to learn. Because we're still swimming in this thing where, one day leads to the next and it's, TGIF and oh, it's how it's Monday, stuff like that. And now it's like every little thing that happens can become, a point of enlightenment instead of that heaviness that we have carried around.
Don't you ever experience going out and handling it yourself? You've got it all under control,
Not so much anymore.
superseding God.
No, this is the first year I've had help with raking the weeds. Somebody came over and volunteered. It's like, oh. I guess I always felt like I have to do it myself.
Well, not feeling like you have to, but
Yeah,
just doing it that way. And just getting in more trouble.
because I think it's more of a pressure that you think you have to handle it all by yourself. And it's very sad. And you won't admit that. You won't admit that there's sadness that you feel abandoned. And all those emotional feelings of grief, have those feelings. But you are not allowed to acknowledge that in yourself because that's,
Well, the course,
big girls don't cry or whatever,
the course tells me that I can have a certain kind of day if I make no decisions by myself.
Right.
However, 9 times out of 10, here I am interfering. And not going to, like you say, going to and asking the Holy Spirit for help.
Yeah, well, that used to be exactly the way we lived, never asking anybody for help. And now that I have this, guy up in the sky or whatever, this red light going, I'm here. Then I just say, well, I can't do this, and it's interesting how it plays out. And I find it, I guess especially thinking of the time when I had the woodchucks under the house and my neighbor was telling me, you can, you're in big trouble. If you
Take a gun and shoot it.
She said,
Just gonna
that's what it
say
said.
that.
That's what it said. That's what it said in the online. She said, the only best way to get rid of the woodchucks is to shoot them. And I thought, and now I'm gonna have to shoot them. Somebody's telling me to feed them bubble gum because that makes them die under the house. And I said, oh my God, what should I do? And I just went like, no. And I called this number for an exterminator, somebody who would come and move the animals. And the guy was just loopy. He came out. He was whistling around my house. I felt he looked like Willie Nelson. He had this funny hat on and cowboy boots, a little short guy. Oh yeah, you got a little problem here. You do. It was just this energy of I'm gonna take care of it and you'll be okay. So if that wasn't Holy Spirit, I don't know what was. Because I was just desperate. My perfectly
Well,
wonderful
it's something
neighbor
that Andrew.
telling me to learn to learn how to shoot a gun.
Did you get rid of it?
He did, and he fixed a fence around it, and even when we got a skunk, and he got a possum, he didn't charge me.
Oh, wow.
Guy.
2 for the price of
I just
1.
went straight to peace. I went straight, like instead of going to pieces, I went to peace.
Cool. Cool. So before we go on, the cake today was a red dot cake. For most of you are probably aware of that. And just to explain, there is a red dot. Okay. And it's either here, as I identify with this character called Mary Ann, or if I rise above the battleground and I look at what's going on in the world, that same red dot has a different purpose. And I'm either identifying with the observer or I'm identifying with the character called Mary Ann. And it's very important that we spend as much time as possible being the observer, because when I'm identified with Mary Ann, I'm constantly rolling out the carpet of time and extending my classroom, I guess you could say. When we're up here observing the character called Mary Ann, and I don't judge or attack it, I simply watch what Mary Ann's up to without judgment or condemnation. In those moments, I'm actually out of time And it actually begins to collapse the purpose of having time that we would normally have to go one moment after another moment after another. So it's very important that we understand that those might not sound that significantly different, but they are actually quite different. And it's a great benefit to be the observer of what's going on instead of being the character in the dream. Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's going on either at home
Correct.
with the Holy Spirit, or we are in the process of going home.
Correct.
You know,
There's no good or bad.
Correct. No, no, it just is what it is.
you know how
Yes.
Ken explains that, is he takes that little red dot,
Mhm.
and he, on his chart, it's got an arrow going this way.
Right.
And an arrow going this way. And if you're going, the arrow goes this way, you're automatically.
Well, absolutely. And we are always, whenever we made this choice, we,
He's busy.
once the choice was made, as Ken Wapnick's wife always said, we mind melded with this choice. And that's the choice we have aligned with ever since. We are now becoming aware there is another choice, and that's the value of the course, is to help us understand there's another choice. When I was just living from this perspective, I had no idea I had another choice. We unequivocally felt that we were an innocent victim of circumstances beyond our control, and that we had to manipulate people and situations in the world to even get a little inkling of it working out okay for me. This is saying you're not really going to get the answer you're looking for as long as you're living in this perspective, because the answer doesn't live here. Yes, you can finagle things in the world and make it appear that you're under control and you get your way and so on. But it's just going to continue to flow down, because just like a movie in a projector, if the film in the projector is of guilt, sin, and fear, and you don't heal that, it's going to find another place to land. So we really want to get to the point where we're here, and that would actually be pointing here instead of pointing over here.
You say you can't consciously decide to go to the red dot, to go to that.
Well, you can
I can't
conscious,
sit there and think, wow,
well, you can step back and observe what Russ is doing, okay? But in regard to shifting you over to here, that part's not your job. Your job is to realize, oh, look what's going on in this delightful little play called Russ's life, and observe that Russ is not coming from a loving place oftentimes. But the very fact that you could be up here observing means you're not as brain dead as you used to be. You're not just a reactive vehicle, I guess you could say.
It's a choice.
You're a reaction machine.
Russian decision, the decision maker in Russia's mind made the choice for the ego.
Right. And again,
Thereby causing the
affect,
projection
right.
of that thought system. The world is nothing except the secret dream produces the world's dream.
Right.
And they're both the same.
When the ego is rolling out the red carpet for me, the first thing that I start to get really nervous or anxious is I just think still, really still. And I just really try, and I've been practicing for a long time. I'm getting better at really getting still. And like what Andrea said, coming to that safe place where everything just kind of aligns, the out of whack things. So I'm still working on it, but I just go still. And still, I had to close my eyes and take a deep breath and really just still. And it's just that spirit comes more than the material things, and you just try to be more in the spirit.
More in line with the
Right.
right mind.
Because if you think of think about the ego in the world, this is all chaos. And whenever you're still, you're saying, I don't know, basically, I want another answer. Yeah.
Go to, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're opposite ends of the world.
Oh, they're truly at the opposite end
Yeah,
of the
you
world.
don't even have to know anything.
Yeah, and I think that's
accept.
what you say, I don't know anything.
Yes.
So, it-
Well, and staying in the present moment rather than the past, the future is the only way to not suffer.
Yes.
You know, horribly.
Yes, absolutely correct. It's the only place you can access that experience, the only place.
And the more I practice the course, looking at the ego with Jesus, the more, it's hard to explain, the more I see both sides. I can see, you know, and I can
Yep.
even be in the middle of a horrific, you know, ego attack. And I'm aware there's another choice, and I
Yep.
know I don't want to make it, so let's have at it. And then afterward, when I'm able to, when the mind's able to go up to the decision maker and observe, like, for instance, in my experience with the boy, the day that I wanted to be at the right place, at the right time to recreate this, I was down there, totally unconscious, had no idea what I was doing, no awareness. And then on the way home from, having that experience and looking at it, I was up there.
Yep.
And in those two places become more
More,
definite.
more connected, yeah.
Well, it's just cool, because you could, like, you go, like, everybody out of the pool, that's it. That's it. I don't know. I mean, with woodchucks, I just went to bed. I said, Jesus, help me. I can't do this. And I had called the guy, and then all of a sudden he was there, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's Jesus.
Right. So when it says, whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, because the miracle, you could consider that is the constant. That's the before, or let's see, get the sun over here. Where's the sun's not there. Is that it? Oh, well, I can't find the sun, but we'll call, what can we call the sun? We'll call this the sun, or no, that's not plain. Anyways, the shadow goes over the sun. The sun is the constant. The sun does not go anywhere. The sun is the sun is the sun. It gets covered over by the belief of the ego. So when it says whatever lies you may believe, and what are the lies we believe? The identification with the ego. They are of no concern to the miracle. The miracle is nothing happened. Everything's fine. But to the degree that we hold on to the belief system of the ego, we are not going to recognize the miracle is right there behind there. And so we will continue to relate to this instead of what we really are. And then he goes on to say, which can heal any of them with equal ease. In other words, it can heal anything, no matter what the form of the illusion that seems to be disrupting your peace, it can heal any of them. Because the only thing that causes any of them, no matter how big or small they are, or what they look like, is the belief in the separation instead of love.
And then the mistake that people make is that they think that they have to think of how
An
it's gonna
answer,
be.
yes.
And that you can't, so because it's a miracle, that by definition, you don't have to know. You're not supposed to know how it works, because
You don't.
you're not going to be able to know that. That isn't part of what, that is, the ego can't engage in that.
Nope.
And there's no words that the Holy Spirit can give you except, wow.
Rose, could you turn that little dial just a little bit and make the heat come on? Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Denise.
So paragraph 5, line 5, but remember the first principle in the course, there is an order of difficulty in miracles. This is the next line I want to talk about.
Yep.
Number 6, in reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love.
Correct.
Now, is that because, you recognize the specialness of it and the fact that it's on that side of the chart, and that's not what your name before. Can we discuss what that means?
Okay, so basically what that means is you are what you are. Nothing can interfere with that ever. Nothing ever has. We just think it has. You know, you can think about a little child going to the beach and they're building sand castles and they're having a wonderful time and they're playing and mom's in the background saying, come on, time to come home to eat. But you're so busy playing, you don't hear the voice and you don't care that the voice is being called because you're having a good time having, playing and whatnot. So eventually you get hungry, go home, and a big wave comes by and the sandcastle's gone. All that pretend world of our experience, poof, nothing.
So we're perfectly unaffected by expressions of lack of love because we are that love in our actual existence, not in this
Correct.
nothing.
It has nothing to do with this,
Right?
yes.
Anything we do,
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
You're the eye of the hurricane.
Teach only
Chaos
love,
is
that
going
is
on
what
around
you
you.
are.
You're still.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
nothing that seemingly happens on that side of the chart
Is anything.
can affect that.
Right.
Nothing can affect that, nothing.
I like line 8, peace is an attribute in you. You
Amen.
cannot find it outside.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's what the course, again,
Listen to
the
it.
ego says, go here, go there. You can find it over here. Yeah, this is going to make you feel better. The answer is never going to be found here.
No, it makes you just exhausted.
Just makes you exhausted. And at the same
Pissed off.
time, having
Ready to fight.
heard that, watch yourself go look for things that you think are going to make you feel better. And that's, observe. That's what good little egos do. But he keeps, this is not the first time that he says this, and it's not the last time he says it. He's saying you can only find that peace within. That's the only place it exists. And again, nothing of this world touches anything of this world. There's a line between these two. In any given moment, you're one or the other, but there's nowhere where this can come over here or this can go over there. Mutually exclusive thought systems.
So when it starts talking after line 6, in reality, you're perfectly unaffected by expressions of lack of love. Line 7, these could be from yourself and others, from yourself to others, or from others to you. Is that the expressions of lack of love that don't affect us? Is the killer be killed?
Yeah, and
Is
when,
that what it's
and when
talking
he's
about?
saying from you to them or them to you, as Helene, I think it was saying earlier, you think somebody outside is irritating me or upsetting me. Nobody is outside irritating you or upsetting you because both of these characters are coming from this mind. And it's just like a dream at night. If you, have all these characters running around in your dream, when you wake up in the morning, there's nobody there. Where did they come from? Same identical situation that occurs here. And we can say those words, but I know very well living from that place from where most of us are is very challenging because I don't believe that, even if I want to believe that.
Well, and wanting something to be different so badly is enough to disturb your peace. And you want to point at the thing that you think is disturbing your peace. but
Yes.
Really, you just want it to be fucking different.
Yep. And
that's what's the cause of it, not the other thing, no matter how irritating and painful and whatever the fuck it is.
yep. And the thing is, we keep looking to find the answer
Right.
of what the problem is here. It can't be answered here.
No,
It doesn't exist. It's not personal.
it's nothing.
It's nothing.
Or, yeah.
There's so many little things that change in the world. Everything changes, that they didn't make the cake like they did last year. I was a little bit like, oh, Dave, this is different. Like, it's just everything, like you talked about death, like turning the page. Everything that we want to hold on to in the world just brings death because
Yep.
it's not really what we want. It's, we want it to be that way, but.
Yep.
But every, all the smaller things that, when you look at all those things, you see, then now I have the luxury of thinking, okay, look at that. How
Yep.
silly. Of course,
Yep.
it's not gonna be the same, because somebody else
Exactly.
made it, and you over there, that's all the ego separated. Every little part's been separated into, what's the red dot anyway?
But I think, just like Rose was saying when she told the story of the little boy, that's not like a majorly significant thing in my life. This little boy smiled at me. And it's not a real significant thing in your life that the cake looked different this time than it did the last time, and you liked the one last time.
Yeah.
But we're being asked to look at those subtleties and become very aware of how quickly there's a problem. You know, maybe it's the temperature in the room, maybe the chair's not coming. I mean, it's like 24 hours a day.
Yeah, constant.
Constantly. I remember one time being at the foundation and they had like this exercise that from the time you woke up in the morning to the time you got to class, to make a list of all the things that irritated and upset you. You know, did somebody not smile at you? Was it too cold? Was it too hot? Was the food good? What? And watch, this is our lives and we think we're having a great life. And it's just conflict, you know, it's like we're like what's when they're throwing the balls up with it. Like jugglers, yeah, when it's like we're just juggling insanity all day long and we're not even aware if that's what's going
I
on.
mean, we thought we were comfortable with
And we
that.
thought we were.
Yeah.
And it isn't just the doings and the things, the
No.
little things in life, the distractions that we're talking about. It's also the perception, the small perception that we have and the judgment. And I know that's what we have to be looking at. And I don't look at every single one because they happen so fast.
Sure.
But the ones that hit me couldn't have missed me. And those are the ones I look at.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And that's what we're being asked to do is look at the ones that hit you.
You know, Mary Ann,
They hurt.
the problem is, we think they're so trivial. We don't.
Well,
we don't
and then
look,
there's
you know.
that. And that's why, yeah,
The guy that, or whoever asked, how much did you lose your peace? Very seldom do I go there and own that, because I think it's a nothing.
Yep.
But that's the key, is to own every one of those situations without doubt,
yes.
and just give it over to the Holy Spirit.
Well, and the ones that I don't catch are gonna come right back around.
Oh, you can count on it.
You'll get them.
Right.
And it also then it's all the same thing.
Yes.
It is,
All the same
exactly.
thing. We're losing our peace over something we think is real.
It's all
And it's being
separation.
shown to us that if we want this, it's not real, that, you know,
Yep.
we can go that deep into it. The word real doesn't come up very
You
often.
wanna know what teacher you chose? Just look.
Yep.
That's all you gotta do. Oh, there I go again.
And now it's not like I'm, you know, that Jesus, the energy of Jesus is, I call on that. And sometimes I just get the real quick answer, you know, what do you want here? This is that, they go, that's not important. I get that, like, I get this big remark, like, that's not, why are you upset about that? That's not important. And then I know it's not important. I can feel it.
And again,
Just telling that to yourself.
Well, next to my piece, what do I want? So, you know,
Yep.
before it used to be next to some more shit, but now it's next to my piece, what do I want? So then it gets easier to make that decision, that distinction.
I had experience that the city of Bay Village where I live had replaced like a lot of our sidewalk tiles around our street. And then this is when they started, when I was having a hard time sleeping. But sleep was a really big deal and every night I'd be like ready to go to bed. So anyway, but they would start at 7 in the morning.
jeez.
And they come in with their cranes and lift, you know, and the dust and then cutting the sidewalk tiles out and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the last straw. This is just so unfair. I just can't believe this is happening to me. This is so unfair. I only happening to you. Yeah, and then I'm trying to sleep, maybe I just got to sleep and then I start, it's 7 in the morning, they start, you know, the cement trucks are going but you know what, it happened for, you know, a while and then I finally, there's nothing I can do. I have no control over the situation.
Right.
They're gonna come and do their jobs. I'm ready, whether I want them to or not. And I just sort of really gave up, like, there's nothing I can do. And I think I dropped it.
You can call the city department. and
But they're
kindly
probably-
ask them.
You know, I didn't. And what I'm saying is, the next day, they came and I looked at them like so differently outside my window. I would give them love. I would send them love. And I talked to some of them, and when I was walking my dog, and they have cones out loud and gotta walk around on the street, and so it's very inconvenient. But I mean, the people working were really nice. And, I talked to the one, and this is the end of the story, but the girl, my driveway was the last tile they did. And I was talking to her while she was doing the texturizing of it. And she was a very nice girl. And I just was like, wow, what a great experience. And I was sort of sad that they were going to be leaving. Because I got so used to the trucks going up and down the street and with their cement. And it was just amazing how I was so livid. And then I just came to a place of real peace with them, where I enjoyed seeing them outside. And then the thing of it is that I think Jesus winked at me, because our sidewalk tile is the only one that a little kitty cat walks through. So every time I go to the end of my street and I see the little kitty cat, and I am reminded of what a change of heart, of
Perfect.
perception.
Perfect,
can do.
perfect.
Yeah.
And again-
Whatever shifts us.
Whatever shifts.
They weren't because you're not sleeping.
Right.
No.
Well, yeah, they
Your
were do
attitude.
their thing, whether I wanted
Yes.
to or not.
Yes.
And I said, you know what, Shelley, I have no control. And I really literally just was like, that was the last straw.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you didn't figure out how to solve the problem, but that hate turns into a connection and love. And
Yeah.
yes, and that's,
And I
again,
honestly was sad the next day, we're like,
aw,
the trucks are gone. They're all gone. I went on to another.
We hope they never come down nice.
all right, so it makes no distinctions among misperceptions. So literally, it doesn't matter how big or small or significant or insignificant any situation is, it can be shifted beyond my control if I choose to use this process to have it be healed. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other hand. And what is error? The belief in separation. What is correction or truth? Nothing happened. The workbook lessons, I'm not sure what number it is. There's one problem, one solution. What's the problem? We believe in separation. What's the solution? Nothing happened. And if you look underneath these two words, under ego, it says it really happened. Under the Holy Spirit, it says nothing happened. Well, do I want nothing to have happened, or do I want to be right about the situation and the scenario that I want to prove to somebody, whether it be the sidewalk or whatever it may be, that they're wrong and this shouldn't happen and blah, 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 blah. Or do I want to find out what the shift to recognizing what everything is under the vision of God instead of my lens of seeing. And miracles do happen with this process. All right, so I'm going to read that again. It makes no distinction among misperceptions. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other. So it's not about all the details of should I do this, should I do that, should I go there? It's, am I choosing to align with the Holy Spirit, or am I walking with the hand of the ego?
The real trick is to change.
Exactly.
It's not that you don't have things that you have to do, like, you have to
Absolutely.
look in your roof, you just don't bury it. Either you fix it yourself, or you get someone to fix it. But
Exactly.
in the meantime, you still have a different attitude of how you see the situation. You
Absolutely.
change your attitude.
Yep.
Okay, it's not that you don't do anything,
Right.
because you could have done something.
Sure.
But using a different purpose.
Exactly. And again, we don't even realize that we're living so deeply from a seat of, I want to be right.
Well, to see, we never realize, because it's all happening unconsciously.
Sure.
We never realizing that we're condemning ourselves
Absolutely.
first, and then turn around and dare the guilt.
Yep.
So you're not aware of that.
Right.
You're accusing yourself. Whatever. And then you turn around, make them the master. And then you change your attitude. And they're not, they're just like you and I. Do their job.
Look at the stories that we tell ourselves,
Wow.
and they're all based in the past.
Always based in the past. All right, so, yeah,
Somebody call the plumber.
Well, that's the too, though, the thing that you, whatever you did, so it's not what you do about it.
right.
It's,
No,
it's
you're
who,
right.
so, it says who you take with you. Who do you take with you? So the question was, do I call somebody, do I not call them? And I find myself getting all riled up about something, on the street or whatever. And then I call, but I'm taking, I have to pay attention. I mean, I do what I feel like doing, right? I'm like, okay, that's it, I'm calling him. And I go, well, okay, but how?
Take the Holy Spirit.
And then I asked the Holy Spirit, and I've had some really interesting, enlightening conversations with people who want to buy my house and want this and want that. The guy said, we want to buy your house. I said, well, then where would I live? And he started to laugh. And so I know what happened, what transpired, because I could tell he was from a different culture. And he said, well, we would get you a nice apartment, give you money for an apartment. I go, yeah, but then you're in the apartment and you go outside and you're on the streets, you're not in the yard and stuff. And we had this interesting, because I could tell he was interested to like lighten up too. Like, what the hell are we talking about? What do I want to buy her house for? I don't even know who she is, right? It was just so interesting to get, I got all that out of it. I got all that out of my willingness to kind of look at what I wanted and not be, not like, because a lot of times I think when I feel the Holy Spirit leave me is when I get mad and I hang up. And I don't really need to carry on a conversation with the guy, lecture him about why I'm not going to do this, but like whatever comes up then has a purpose as well. And if the Holy Spirit's with me, then there's this lightness that comes around it instead of, oh God, I do this stupid job and call all these crazy people and try to wrangle their houses away from them. And, he just like got very, I could tell his cultural background was more of a, conversational, not this business time of, backing away from each other. It's very interesting when you take the Holy Spirit, and it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, this is silly stuff. People go to work and they work in these big high-powered jobs, and I'm talking about something on the phone, and my son
Doesn't matter.
My son gets a laugh out of me because it's like, let's get real here. I'm not going to leave my house. Where am I going to live?
Yep.
It's like, that's a good question. I'm going to give you a lot of money. I'm going to give you a big apartment. I'm like, hey,
And I think sometimes, maybe you're confronted with a scenario and you're so riled up in it that maybe today's not the good day to make a decision. You might not need to wait a day or two where you've calmed down to a place where you can really bring the Holy Spirit with you. Because, that the attachment to our world and our issues and difficulties can be very thick. And sometimes we need a little chilling out time, like standing in the corner or whatever, like when we were little kids. But wait until you're to that place where, wait a minute, okay, I'm ready. Holy Spirit, help me with this.
So we didn't make a mistake. If we get mad and hang up the phone, I mean, I used to, because you actually take that on yourself. You're mad at yourself.
Yep.
You're being such a jerk about whatever, it's not the same issue, but it's the same kind of thing. And then you hang up and then you're like, oh, you just feel like I just lost out on something. I just X somebody out. I killed them. Now
Pretty much, pretty much, yeah.
They're not on the phone anymore.
A mistake is only a mistake.
Right.
It's not
Yes.
sin.
And that's how it feels now. Like it feels better. If I do that, I know I just forgot.
Yep.
And I can
Mistake
go,
is
I
a
can go right
mistake
there.
can be
and
corrected.
Right. And then the guilt that dissipates the guilt, with all the things that you did that you think I never should have said that, should have done that, whatever. That helps to relieve the guilt.
Yep.
Kind of like it's like this dark cloud all around you all the time. Like, oh, did you do this right, did you do that right? Or if you're in the grocery store, somebody excuse me and excuse me. I mean, with your whole family, you can yell and scream at them, but all the people in the grocery store you have to play nice with. Oh, you want that zucchini? No, whatever. So, am I in your way? Like,
it's just interesting, you know, how it just lights up everything everywhere you go.
Yep. All right, so it says, but remember the first miracle, excuse me, the first principle in this course, there's no order of difficulties in miracles. And we know how unequivocally different than life that is, because in our world, if somebody, you know, if I crack my nail or somebody bombs 9/11, we would say, oh no, those aren't the same. But from the perspective of the course, you're either at peace or you're not at peace. And if you're not at peace, you have the opportunity to choose differently. All right, in reality,
Points out that it's your decision.
well, exactly. In reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. And I know Denise discussed this before, because I'm either whole and full or I'm lacking. And if I'm coming from a place of lack, it again represents the choice that was made. And then I can realign with that experience of oneness or wholeness.
We're at every turn.
Every,
that thought is
every single one.
created in the mind thought system.
Right, it's either I want or this is
I
right.
need.
Yeah, we've got a grievance with someone. We either don't have something or
Yeah.
we have something we don't want.
Correct.
That's what it looks like.
And those are always based on the past or the future as well. Yes,
Sounds like a pandemic.
it is. All right.
Something is missing, and the only thing that's missing is I broke off communication with God.
Yep.
And that's
And
where that,
right. And the understanding that his end of the phone is still open. We're the ones that broke off
I
that
broke off
connection. Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
He
not
didn't
trying-
leave me,
he's
I
not
left
trying to buy
him.
my house, yeah.
Yes. Yep. All right, peace is an attribute in you. And again, I can't find peace outside. I have to go within. I can get stuff from the outside that may fill me up, make me feel better for a moment, but it is not going to bring me that peace. Not very long. You cannot find it outside. Illness is some form of external searching. And be very aware when the Course uses the word illness, it's not talking about your physical illness. It's talking about your mind is sick because it is chosen for the ego. And yes, it can project down into the body and you'll play in the body issues, but it's talking about the illness of your mind having chosen against what you are. Again, you cannot find it outside. Health is inner peace. It enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without and capable through your acceptance of miracles or correcting the condition proceeding from lack of love in others. So again, any form of lack of love in any, form, shape or size or whatever is an outside experience that can be brought back into the connection within so that you connect with that love. And again, it doesn't matter if it's something that's being done
May
to
we have
you.
your attention, please? The library will be closing in 30 minutes. If you need a library card, please come up to the circulation desk. All computers, copiers, self-checkouts, and the cash register will shut down 5 minutes before we close. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to begin to, I can be, let's say, in a restaurant having fun with my friends, and there's a table next to me that people are carrying on and upsetting me. That's me too. Okay? Even if you don't know any of those people, that experience is coming from your mind. And again, this is not an easy concept to grasp initially, but if we understand that anything I see, just like in your dream at night that occurs, is coming from your mind. And if we can keep practicing, bringing it back to, okay, wait a minute, I must be choosing for the ego, and that's not bringing me what I want any
Yeah,
longer.
but if it doesn't ring your doorbell,
Well, yes,
then it's.
and it usually is.
No,
But I know, you're right. If it's not something that, well, if it's something that's upsetting you, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Because it's not just a thing, it's how am I
Yeah,
affected
because
by
a
it.
whole lot of stuff happens around you.
That you don't-
even
you're not
give it
getting.
any mind.
And be very aware, and that's a very true statement, literally a bazillion things happen every day in your life. Why is it there are certain ones you hang on to and pull in and make them yours in your life? And oftentimes they're reoccurring ones that keep your attention as well. And again, one problem, one solution, and it doesn't matter if it's big or small, the same remedy is available. It's sort of like going to a doctor, and no matter what illness you have, he gives you the same prescription. Well, the same prescription is, I must have decided wrongly, I'm not at peace, help. I need to see what you have instead of what I'm doing or what I'm experiencing.
Because we don't really know what all that stuff stands for.
Zero,
And don't have to.
zero.
That's lesson 79.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. All right. One problem, one solution. And it's all about bringing it back to the point where we can live from that place unequivocally during our daily life experiences. And watch how you don't remember. Watch how you don't remember the workbook lesson, or you don't want to. And ultimately, you don't want to when you don't, but that's not our experience. Eventually, you'll have moments where you'll hear the voice and it'll say something and you'll go, no, later on maybe, but I'm not ready for that. But
You're too
It's-
afraid. That's
it's
okay.
always boils down to, I'm too afraid of this. And so I prefer the camouflage of the insanity of the ego instead. And it's either I'm not, if I'm afraid of this, this is my home and I want it.
That's the outer space, like when you cut out the outer space, the fear.
Yep.
That just primal.
That primal fear,
Terror.
yes. Yeah. And again, we believe we kicked God off the throne. Where did the throne go? Oh, here it is. We believe we kicked off God off the throne, and he's gonna come and get me. I think I killed him off. If I walk towards him, I don't believe I'm gonna be realigned to what I really am. I believe that he's gonna come and get me and do to me what I think I did to him.
You look within, you're going to be annihilated.
Exactly.
Well, that's so true, because people will say, wonder why this happens, well, what if God's getting back at you? That you kind of,
Absolutely.
and you know all that, that, oh, look at this, this is happening because that happened when I was 20. Those are kind of like these ironclad ways of talking that people have about
Yep.
the way their life is ending up, why do I have this or that because of what I did way back when? So all that guilt is just like all piled up, stockpiled in places. And
Yes.
this way it just kind of dissipates. It doesn't, it's still there, but it doesn't have to be a total like modus, a way of thinking all the time. You can look at this other way and, slowly let it seep in, but, with all the things that are said in the course, there's so many places in the course where it talks about how much God loves us. And I never thought about that. I just always thought Jesus was the poor sucker that got stuck up on the cross. I never thought about him, it never made sense. Like, why would God's only son, why would he get nailed to the cross? Well, because it's not real. It's not, we're all nailed to the cross of some way.
Yes. And that's what we need to look at.
That's the course.
Right. So just so interesting how all pervasive that energy of guilt about everything.
Yeah, can you
If I
imagine the
hadn't done
Bible?
this, then this wouldn't have happened, that
Yep.
kind of thing constantly.
Well, yeah, but again, that's part of the programming of the mind to keep us stuck over
Right.
here.
Right, so that's, that just to have the relief from that voice, having, and then how the supreme being, God, could be usurped by anyone. The
It's
whole
absurd.
definition- The
Yes.
whole definition of a supreme being is that they're in
He's
charge.
supreme, right?
Yeah, so that's why.
But we think we're supreme because we think we're in charge.
I just thought we were just, playing a game of him, like, now he's in charge, now I'm in charge, just kind of like that. Before it's like playing tennis with him or whatever, but that's not, it's more real than that. It's more we can absorb it better and
Yep.
get the good stuff, get the peace.
Can you imagine a God of love behaving?
No,
I mean,
so
really.
it's like a lot of the discussions about God are really like it was a tautology. Like, if this is this way, then this can't be the opposite. It has to be equal. There's, a lot of logic in this course about
Yes.
what it defines a supreme being as something that is in total charge and would be totally loving. Like, that's the first time I ever heard that. Was, God is just totally loving. I thought,
Wow.
are you kidding me? What's this? It just, and it wasn't, I taught that when I was in grade school. About God, the 10 Commandments, all those things, were drilled into my head.
Sure.
Would you believe that
Catholic
we,
school.
we put that back there?
Oh.
We, the
By that
decision
choice,
maker,
yep.
made that God when he would answer a request
Yep.
for being special.
All right,
We
we
did it.
probably need to close up because we only have the room for a certain time. Yes, we will, but we'll say our prayer first. Okay, everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have accepted, and which you love. Amen. All right, everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll see